Welcome to this session on building urban capacity for just climate transitions. My name is Kerstin Hemström and I am part of the Center for Sustainable Urban Futures at Växus, West Sweden Nexus for Sustainable Development. And with me today are some of my colleagues of a new initiative called Just Transitions, Swedish Research School on Governance for Just Urban and Regional Climate Transitions. This is a transdisciplinary initiative that is funded by the Swedish Government Research Council for Sustainable Development, Formas. It involves 3 universities, Linköping University, Gothenburg University, and Chalmers University of Technology, and 5 public bodies in Sweden, the municipalities of Norrköping and Linköping, the city of Gothenburg, the region Västra Götaland, and the County Administrative Board of Östergötland. And it builds on the needs and challenges involved for these local actors to build capacity for just climate transitions. But why just climate transitions? What does it mean that it is transdisciplinary? And how does this build capacity in response to real-world issues? These are some of the things we will reflect on with participants of this initiative present here in the studio and online. First, I turn to Rickard Wallenius, who is Associate Professor in Environmental Social Science at the University of Gothenburg and teach and do research on climate justice and energy transitions. Rickard, we often hear how we need to act urgently, better and faster to accelerate our response to climate change. Tell us, from your perspective, what does this need to involve?
Yes, this needs to involve a lot of things, of course, and I fully agree with that. We need to act. We need to act with full force. And including a lot of policies, from getting the prices right to investments, large-scale investments, and so on. But beyond those aspects, we also need to consider legitimacy, that these reforms or measures are legitimate and that they have some kind of public support. And that is also important. And this is where kind of climate justice and concerns for a just transition come into play. So there's this widespread feeling, I guess, in society that the burdens and benefits of both climate change and climate measures to deal with climate change are not equally shared. So climate justice, I would say, is about addressing these climate injustices that are perceived. And there's many good reasons to do so. I think there are, first of all, we have normative reasons, what we think is right and wrong. And there's these experts in ethics and so on who have a lot of strong arguments for why we should consider normative perspectives. And that would include, for instance, the polluters pay principle, the idea that those who have messed up, who have polluted, should also clean up their mess. And that is a principle that often points to the kind of richer segments of society. Even if you look within the society or between countries, it's often those who have the larger means who have been polluting the most. So this clear justice principle at the bottom of that. And there are also another strong ethical principle is about prioritizing those who are worse off when we do things in society. So it's not those who are kind of less well off should not be affected worst in any type of transition or change in society. And also points to this justice perspective. So we have the normative aspects. We also have like another type of argument that are more focusing on expediency and efficiency. So unless what we do to mitigate climate change is perceived as fair, there's a risk that it won't have public support, would even evoke resistance from parts of society. And that would risk to slow down the process and even make it coming to a halt. And so, for instance, within political science, there's this debate on what is called climate policy backlash. So we all know, I think, about some climate measures that have been resisted and even rolled back. And that could be, one example is rural dwellers who unjustifiably feel that they are affected unjustifiably by, for instance, increasing fuel prices or by wind power development, and take measures to protest or exhibit voting behaviors and so on in order to stop that. But there are also a lot of all other potential or real conflicts, and they are often motivated by justice. Within urban planning, and that you mentioned, we have like the mobility aspect, how to prioritize public resources and public space between, you know, cars and bikes and public transportation and so on. This might invoke conflicts, and the entire idea that we should have tax increases as a means of mitigating environmental bads, whereas it can mean that kind of vulnerable groups are hit more than other groups, while the well-off people are able to kind of buy their way out. So this is also leading to conflicts. So it's of course a very complex matter, this, and there's perhaps no easy way out, but I think it's very important to at least consider these social and distributive kind of effects of designing different policies. So not only thinking about mitigating climate change, but also how kind of it will play out in terms of normative effects and efficiency and expediency. Thanks.
Thank you, Rickard. Our next speaker is Merit Polk. Merit is a professor of human ecology at the University of Gothenburg, where she does research on urban planning conflicts, on collaboration around complex societal challenges, and on developing transdisciplinary research approaches. Merit. Rickard mentioned several different sides of just climate transitions, and that it is important, but there is no real consensus on what this involves. What does this mean for how we take on just climate transitions in our research school?
Thanks, Kerstin, and thanks, Rickard. Rickard brought up a number of really important points here, and I think that it's important to understand, you know, from this kind of complex of issues that Rickard outlined, it's important to understand the types of challenges that we are dealing with when we're focusing on urban governance for just climate transitions. And one way of thinking about them is in terms of wicked problems. And those of you who have heard me speak before know that I love the word wicked. It doesn't exist in Swedish. It's such a great word because it doesn't just mean complex or difficult. It implies that we have different types of challenges around these problems. And the first is that, as Rickard outlined, is that we don't agree about them. We don't agree about what climate change, you know, what it is, what causes it, and how it can best be solved. These types of problems are highly contested. Another problem is that these types of problems don't have any clear boundaries. They're both local and global, and in the present and in the future. And because of this kind of lack of boundaries, they cross both our disciplinary subject areas as well as our administrative and all of our decision-making levels in the way we organize society. And this lack of boundaries also means that they are caused and influenced by many different types of processes and individuals and companies and et cetera. So we need different types of knowledge and expertise to understand and deal with them. And this also means that they engage, this kind of that we don't agree on them, that we need different types of knowledge. They engage many different actors and interest groups, which all have their own agendas, their own goals, and their ways of working together. So the question then for us is that, how do we work with a wicked problem like governing, you know, just climate transitions in a research school? And all of these complexities, all of these challenges related to wicked problems, that we don't agree on them, that they need a broad base of knowledge and expertise, and that they engage many different actors and organizations. All of these challenges point to the need for different types of collaboration. And that's basically the focus of our research school, is to bring together different types of knowledge and expertise from both research and from different public organization and other types of groups. And we do this to carry out our 7 research projects. And this is called a transdisciplinary research approach. And I just like to define it because it's kind of a horrible word. So the trans and transdisciplinary means that we not only transcend our disciplines within the university, but we transcend the boundaries of the university itself to bring in other types of knowledge and expertise into our research projects. But it also means for our practitioners, it means that our practitioners from our partner cities and the regions, they also transcend their ways of working together to bring research into their work so that we can integrate our research perspective with practical expertise in our ongoing processes around just climate transitions. And you might ask, how do we do this? We have a number of ways that we're testing and working on. We've just, we're still in our first year. But I think for me, the most important way is that every PhD advising group has two academic advisors and one practitioner from our public partners. And I, for example, am working with two PhD groups, two PhD projects in Gothenburg, one with the city and one with the region. And for want of a better word, I would say that our advising meetings are they're just great. I mean, we continually discuss what's going on in practice, and specifically how the project can link up to ongoing process around urban governance issues, as well as we want the projects, of course, to link into their academic base, to the theory, to the different studies that have been done, to all of the academic demands and discussions that are ongoing. So it's this idea of trying to balance both of these. Another example that we've also had a PhD course that's based, what we call a transdisciplinary PhD course that's based on literature and lectures from both research and practice. And it was on dilemmas and conflicts with just climate transitions. So of course this included all of our 7 PhD students, but we also encouraged our both researcher and practitioner advisors to attend. And everyone didn't have time to attend, of course, but we had enough people attending from different disciplines and different our cities and regions that the discussions in the course that they really kind of talked about both practice-based and research-based problems from both disciplines, from many different disciplines, and from our different public organizations in our different cities and the regions involved in the school. So this became a forum, not just for the student learning, but for all of us to learn from each other, in very much of a mutual learning kind of forum, which I think everybody really appreciated. So I guess just to kind of sum it up, I mean, the overall goal with the school is to increase our ability together, our joint ability to deal with these urban governance challenges around just climate transitions that occur in these 3 different cities and in our different regions. So to do this, we want to develop different types of activities and processes that can support collaboration so that we can identify the research questions and processes that are most relevant right now for dealing with urban governance for just climate transitions. We're testing ideas, as I said. We've kind of just started. We're moving into the end of our first year, but we're testing new ideas and ways of working together. We're also trying to be adaptable and also to see what needs come up and to anticipate the different types of needs we might be having, to work a bit proactively. And I guess overall, I would say that it's a very exciting learning process for all of us.
Thank you, Merit. Now over to 2 of the public practitioner partners of this initiative who will share some reflections on what this means for them. We will first hear from Line de Verdier, who is a regional developer at Västra Götaland. And Line, you are with us online. And you will be followed by Kristoffer Palmestål at the City of Gothenburg in a pre-recorded contribution on how the Just Transitions Research School responds to their needs. So Line, please share some of your reflections so far.
Hi, and thank you for the possibilities to share some reflections so far. Firstly, the region of Västra Götaland comprises as many as 49 municipalities in 4 sub-regions with 1.7 million inhabitants. So it's a diverse landscape ranging from major cities, coastal areas, and more sparsely populated areas. The region's main objectives are to provide the conditions for good public health, a rich cultural life, a good environment, jobs, research, education, and good communications. Although the local government structures are comparable, they vary in size and capacity. That creates a diverse context with variable conditions and needs for climate changes, which in turn can generate conflicts. Research has shown us that we already have an unequal geographical development within and between regions in Sweden as well as in other parts of the world. And in terms of income, education, health, access to work and welfare services. A development that leaves certain geographical contexts, such as smaller and peripheral municipalities, in a vulnerable situation and contributes to local competition, maybe between municipalities as well as regional level. Also, the flow of resources that tends to move from rural to urban areas has negative ecological impacts and contributes to overconsumption of natural resources and unsustainable agricultural practices, which both weaken ecosystems and can affect geological conditions. So maybe you already said it, and maybe some of you will come back to it, but we are currently failing to make the necessary changes required to both limit the environmental impact and adapt to risk caused by climate change. So our thought so far is that we maybe need to change some of the structures in the society, organize ourselves differently, establish new objectives, and find new forms of collaboration. So the region is a role in a multidimensional and complex system. How can our region maintain the competitiveness and strength while we are on the same time ensuring that this is done by a fair distribution of the regional resources, services, and equality for the entire region? So we as a region need more knowledge about the distribution of resources, for example, by comparing the allocation of resources and investments in relation to the geography and social and economic situation. Is there a potential for changes in the economic system regarding planning issues, for example? We need more knowledge about what a role our region already have and can play in a spatial development process gathering all municipalities. We need to better understand how things could be done differently by exploring what a just transition is related to planning issue and at a regional level. So this is why the collaborations with other regions, municipalities and universities and doctoral students are so important to us. The research school allows us to work transdisciplinary to formulate both problems, analyze them, and then work together with the integration application of the knowledge. And that's what's interesting with the research school. So far, we have studied together, as Mary mentioned, that what is a just climate transition, and it was quite abstract, I would say, from a practitioner's view. So I have to say that the next step for us, I think, is to add another layer with the practitioner's views, our experiences, and responsibility. So if we are going to be able to involve, for example, politicians and inhabitants and make a real difference. A challenge for the transformation is there are great uncertainties and risks in the world right now that are already affecting us. Can we keep focusing and be able to speed up the transition? But hopefully we can keep on transforming our region, and that the research school is one of our tools to do that. Thank you.
My name is Christopher Palmstad. I work as an environment analyst at the Environment Administration of the City of Gothenburg, and I'm also program coordinator for the City of Gothenburg Environment and Climate Program. The City of Gothenburg has set ambitious climate targets that we need to achieve together with our likewise ambitious goals to create an equal city. The Just Transition Graduate School allows us to further investigate the challenges of creating a just transition and find ways to achieve a more vertical integration of the issues in our organization. To achieve a just transition, we need to find positive synergies between ecological and social issues in the climate transition, as well as finding ways to avoid conflicts between our goals. We hope the transdisciplinary approach and ambition of the Just Transition School will help us expand the city's understanding on how to do this, as well as help us create forums within the city to explore these issues across traditional administration boundaries. We need to find new ways to address these issues and build up our capacity for change within the city. So far, it has been a very enlightening experience for me personally, and has given me a deeper understanding of the different aspects within a just transition, and given me a language to discuss and tackle these issues on a more detailed level. We have a lot of previous experience of research collaboration, but the ambition of the Just Transition Graduate School goes further than our usual partnerships by embedding a graduate student within our organization, which is both exciting and challenging. We are currently working close together with the PhD student to match the city's goals and needs with the student's research interest to make sure that the collaboration leads to results that have an actual impact on how we govern our city towards a just transition.
Thank you, Lina, and to Christopher as well for pointing to how this is a matter of interest and relevant for you in your roles in the local governance system in Sweden. And we'll pick up on some of the things you mentioned, Lina, in a panel discussion shortly. But first, we go to Gavin Nilsson-Lewis, who is one of the PhD students in our Just Transitions Research School. Gavin has a background in environmental justice and urban planning, and before starting his PhD, he was with Dark Matter Labs and Viable Cities. Gavin is now at Linköping University at Tema T and is working with Sandra Victor at Linköping Municipality, exploring how to strengthen their just transition efforts within their overarching climate neutral 2030 mission. Gavin, you are now about 6 months into your PhD. Can you share with us, how's it going being a doctoral student in this context? What are you most excited about, and what do you hope to achieve?
Thanks, Kirsten, for the introduction and the questions. Yeah, and it's going well, and I definitely agree with Christopher and what Merit said. It's both exciting and incredibly challenging, the work we have ahead. But that's exactly what I wanted to do with my PhD, work at the intersection of climate action and justice, and take an applied or a transdisciplinary approach to the work and have the opportunity to work with Linköping. What am I excited about? I think this program and our work is coming at a critical time when we both know we need to accelerate our transition, and we also recognize that what we're doing is not enough. Cities realize their role in the transition, and both in their ability to engage and listen to citizens, but also influence our way of life and our built environment and how we move and work and what we eat. And also there's also a growing recognition, as Rikard detailed, of that the climate crisis is an interconnected crisis and one rooted in justice. Both historic injustice that created the climate crisis, the impacts of climate change are unequal and already impacting the most vulnerable and who are least responsible for climate change. And in addition to that, as we accelerate our transition, there's the potential that our actions both benefit some and harm others, and could potentially reinforce existing inequalities or injustices. But thankfully, there is a large call or a growing movement for a just transition, and the awareness that we need to merge our climate action with other issues in our society, whether it's inequality or health or job security or democratic issues. And I think this is critical because reframing climate change or the climate crisis as an issue of injustice broadens the scope of what we need to do, or what we define or see as the solutions necessary, what we see as the innovations that are required. For example, moving beyond technological solutions, which are essential but are only a part of the puzzle, and addressing issues of inequality and extreme wealth, ownership of our resources and the management of our organizations, as well as issues of participation, as well as moving beyond things of efficiency but potentially sufficiency, and also, as others have highlighted, questioning our underlying economic system and our overarching societal goals. And I think in doing that, and in addition to examining who may benefit, who may be harmed, and who should be supported in the transition, can help us develop or lead action that is both more fair and both supported as well. And so what am I hoping to get out of this program or this work? Well, we already know that cities all over Sweden and around the world are asking the same question of what does this look like in practice and on the ground. And so that's exactly what we're starting to do right now, taking the time to learn about Linköping, what they're doing at the moment, and what are their current challenges, and also exploring what other cities are doing, and then also, of course, digging into the vast range of research and literature that's out there that can support the work ahead. And hopefully together across our 7 projects, we can build awareness of what a just transition can mean and build capacity within each of the organizations, as well as hopefully develop some new processes and tools that can both support the just transition here, but also inspire others. Yeah.
Thank you, Gavin. Stefan Holmlid, you are a professor in design at Linköping University and director of the Just Transitions Research School, and our final speaker before we move on to a panel discussion. Now, the Research School wants to build capacity and competence for a just climate transition at local and regional levels. What does this mean?
Oh, that's the small question, right? But it's really good. And I think, one of the things is that this is exactly what the Research School are doing. So Gavin and the 6 PhD students, we will know more in a couple of years when they're done. But of course, there are things that we know, and we've heard a bit of that from the other speakers too. So one of the things here is that we're talking about 2 different types or kinds of capacity. So, and one of those is the capacity of the public, or each of us maybe, to participate and to drive transition. And that's a capacity that we need. Gavin alluded to that a little bit. And so it's not only something that is somewhere else. It's here, I'm part of that capacity, etc. There's also the other kind of capacity that has to do with this governance thing that we're doing in the Research School. And then we're talking about the capacity of the governance structures that we have around us, so that we're also participating in different ways. In these governance structures, we both need to work with capacity and capability. So capacity in that sense could be knowledge, and the people that have that knowledge, and the way that how much we have of that, right? And then capability is the manner in which we can use those capacities for our purposes and goals. So when we work with these organizational issues, we need to handle both of those. So it also means then that, and we've heard that from multiple of the speakers here, right? That there's knowledge that is needed, and that's a capacity that we need to create in these organizations. We also need to, like Line was saying, we need to create new ways of working. And that is not so easy in these governance structures. And I'll get back to one of the reasons why that is in a little bit. But we also need to disrupt some of the old capabilities that are in place in order to give room for new capacities to be able to be used in those purposeful ways. And in the end, we need to find ways of maintaining the new ways of working, the new capacities, the new capabilities. So we both need to create, disrupt, and maintain both capacities and capabilities in the organizations. And that thing with doing things in new ways, one of the issues here, and well, that's one of the reasons why it's transdisciplinary also, like Merit was talking about, and the challenges that all of the speakers have talked about is that we merge different knowledge traditions, knowledge types. And when we do that, the way of understanding each other will need to change. There cannot be the old ways in which decisions are made that still will necessarily be done in the same way. We need to acknowledge that there are new knowledge types that needs to be in place to make those really difficult decisions on the capacity, the capability, and the actual actions that we need to do. We're trying to understand how these capacities and capabilities can be built through those transdisciplinary measures that Merit was talking about in the Research School. And of course, there will be a lot of things around here, around the research school, that would contribute to that learning. So in one sense, just as a final note, we need that capacity and capability, not to just accelerate climate transitions, but also to accelerate the just climate transitions in the end.
Thank you, Stefan. So we now move on to a panel discussion to reflect on this a bit further. Now, Stefan, Gavin, Line, Rikard, and Merit, we've heard something from all of you now about the motives and ambitions of the research school and the different partners involved. But what are some of the practical challenges as you're working in a complex system and taking a transdisciplinary approach to the work? Rikard, you were first off, so maybe you can start. Can you expand a bit?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, I want to say that I think the process so far has been more rewarding than challenging, actually, and it's very interesting to get the different perspectives from the working outside the kind of the normal working of within the academy and so on. But there are challenges, and maybe looking from the academic perspective, we are often used to be very autonomous in how we kind of frame our research and design the research. And now we, as Merit and others have been speaking about, we have to kind of transcend that a little bit and meet the expectation and hopes and wishes and needs of other actors. And that is could be challenging and so on. But on the other hand, what we get for that is really opportunities to make a difference, and I think that is very kind of appealing for many of us too. So sometimes the academy is spoken of as kind of we're sitting up in this ivory tower, but now we have really to climb down and become relevant, and that is really, I think, interesting yet also challenging.
Merit, anything you'd like to add?
Oh, what? There's a lot, of course. I guess the practical challenges right now, because right now we're focusing on formulating our research questions for the students, and I think that's really exciting. And even though we're having all these great discussions with our advising groups, it's not unproblematic in trying to focus the question or focus the research project, because there's so many important things. And so I think that's where it's critical, because I'm working with Lina and Christopher, and it's so critical. They, even in our organizations, they have so many different areas where we could focus on. So it's really, I think it's a huge challenge trying to really identify, if we're going to reach these capabilities that Stefan talked about, it's really in these capacities. How do we do that? I mean, we have to, that takes a lot of work, and because the best research question, best according to whom and in what context. So I think that's a huge challenge. And right now we're also working on trying to anchor our projects more in the different home organizations, our different partner organizations as well. And how do we do that in the best way? How do we make sure that these processes aren't isolated, a great TD process that's isolated, but that it's also integrated with the work that's ongoing in our different partner organizations. So I think those are the main challenges right now. But they're going to change through the process as our students develop and as our research projects are carried out.
Thank you. Lina, what are some of the challenges for you, I think?
I think one of the challenges is that we don't have time enough for the transformation needs to be done now, quickly. How do we get the tools, and how do we get the knowledge? Because we need to make a change for real in a short time. And our structure as a regional level is quite complex, and we are in a quite difficult, complex situation. So how are we working together in new ways, finding new tools to be implemented as soon as possible? Thank you.
Gavin, are there any challenges involved?
Of course. To name one, I think I agree with Merit. It's narrowing down the focus of my work, and because the climate change and climate transition and justice cut across all levels of all sectors or levels of society. So it's quite challenging, and I'm interested in quite a lot of things. So it's, yeah, and Lynn Shopping is also doing a lot. So it's this balance of, you know, connecting my interest and what's out there in research and what Lynn Shopping is working with on the ground, and finding a way to balance these interests and merge these ideas from research and practice. That is, it's exciting, but yeah, that is a big challenge at the moment. Yeah.
So Stefan, I think I'll introduce you to a new question. I know it's still early on. It's been a year since this was launched and 6 months since the doctoral students started their studies. But Line and Christopher mentioned some takeaways already. And I'd like to hear from all of you, starting with you. What have you learned, or what are your biggest takeaways so far?
So far, takeaways. Well, I usually think I'm still learning, and that's a constant kind of setting maybe. But so one of the things I'm seeing from this is also how we have these, we organized into governance structures, right, with the West kind of cluster of organizations and that East cluster of organizations. And I can already see some of those things that we need from these governance structures. Well, maybe there is not so much action on the ground, but there's a lot of learning in between, and there are things happening in these governance structures that maybe this context has given us a possibility to work with. So that's one of the learnings I have, I think, with, apart from those things that we could expect, like wonderful PhD students wanting to do a lot of things, right, and crashing together with the practice partners, right. But so this governance structures and how they can learn together, I think that's one of my takeaways this far.
How about you, Rickard?
Yeah, it's a bit early to kind of have a final opinion about that, but I think one thing is that, I mean, it's how there are also like large similarities, I think, between academic institutions and how people work in civil servants work in the municipalities and regions. And I've mostly worked with civil society organizations previously in a transdisciplinary way. And there is sometimes talk of the activists as kind of organic intellectuals who are, I mean, they have studied sometimes at our departments, and now they're giving back to us with the experiences that they have made in their activities in civil society. And I think it's kind of the similar experience here. That, I mean, the municipalities, these departments, and at the regions, I'm sure too, they work with methods and theories that are often kind of similar to what we do, but they also kind of add this. They are very well acquainted with their communities and so on. So this exchange, I mean, it's there are challenges that we discussed, but I mean, we understand each other mostly pretty well, I think. So that's a good takeaway so far.
Merit, what are your takeaways this far? What are the top ones?
I think I have two. I think the first one is that there's a lot of experience and a lot of literature on TD transdisciplinary projects, but there's some literature on transdisciplinary PhD students. But I think that this integrating the transdisciplinary with PhD projects, I think, is something that we're focusing on it, but I think we could learn a lot more about that and focus on that a bit more. So that's one thing that I think that we could develop more. And then my second take is that, I mean, I've worked with practitioners in different ways throughout my entire academic career, and I never cease to be amazed at how much we can learn from each other, and both learning from other researchers in other disciplines, and also, but especially learning from our practitioners in the city, and the region, and the county. So I think that that's one of my takeaways, that this learning, kind of this internal learning, is just so really, I don't know, really important. And I think something that we could, as I think Stefan mentioned that as well, that this is something that we could maybe think about. How can we kind of, can we package it? Can we do something more with it? Can we make it a bit more, explicit in how we use it?
Stefan, can we talk about building some type of capacity already, you think? I
think so. It would be, I mean, just engaging together, I think, is one of those capacities, right? And just seeing across, we talked about it so many times now, right? Merit talked about it now with the transdisciplinarity, building these connections across knowledge, building places like Rickard was also talking about, right? We build a capacity there to be able to think differently and to be able to do things in new ways. In all of these organizations, so it goes back into academia, it goes out into the municipalities and the county board. So I definitely think we're there at least to be able to support each other to build those capacities that we want.
Line, what are your top takeaways this far in terms of what we need to do to realize just transitions?
Yeah. We are, of course, addressing a lot of changes that need to be done in our development strategy, but are we doing enough, and are we doing it the right way? Can we do it something better? And the potential for the acceleration if we work together is my first takeaway, because we are learning so much from each other already. And I think I'm excited to see what will happen when we try to integrate the research into our ongoing processes. Can we do something more quicker there and change the way we work? I'm excited to see that. But I think what we need to work with now in our organization is what is just climate transition on a regional level. Regarding for planning, is my department's responsible planning for public transport and infrastructure planning and broadband and so on. And what does it mean? Because when we are talked with my colleagues, they are not familiar with just climate transition and what it means. So that's the next step. I think we need to, when we come a little bit further on in our process, is work with the communication, make it simpler, and addressing it both to politicians and the private sector, inhabitants, and so on. So I think we need to make it easier to understand and go and work with the practitioners more to see our experiences, and that's one of the reasons why we are so involved in the research goal. And I think we at the regional level, we definitely have a critical role to play, and we are closest to inhabitants and municipalities, as you already said, and we have a great influence on how to plan where we live, communicate with our municipalities and planning together, how we work and travel and so on. And also how we are using our regional resources, for example, for health and care and transport, how are they combined together in different layers, and what are the effects on social and economical planning, for example. So, yeah.
Final question. I think this initiative is a testament to the need to enable for local projects that build on local actors' own initiatives to achieve climate transitions. What message would you like to send to the listeners of this session who may want to do something similar in their local context? Quick reply from
All of us.
Yeah, well, very quick. We'll dare do it. I mean, the challenges are enormous, but it's really worth. Worth trying to collaborate in this way. I think it's has been very rewarding. I think it's gonna be. But
the climate transition and justice cuts across all areas of society. So whether you work with mobility or construction or food or digitalization or finance, there's ways to get involved, and it is necessary that all of these areas are involved in the just transition.
Great. Thank you. I think we need to stop there because we're running out of time. I need to wrap up. To those of you who have listened, we hope that this session has inspired you maybe to take your own steps and make arrangements to build capacity for just climate transitions where you are. You can find more information and follow these initiatives on Urban Futures Swedish webpage, urbanfutures.se, where you also find our contact details. Thank you for listening. Take care.